I'm so happy, excited to be with such a large number and diverse cohort of folks who are excited to apply this critical skill called storytelling to improve their outcomes. Right. So I want to keep this as a very practical webinar, wherein at the end of the 1 hour, you will walk away with certain ready tools and tips that you can start implementing and applying directly to some of your work and your work primarily to communicate with your stakeholders. So let me start off without further ado. The broad, breakup of the time that we have is we've got about 50 minutes. About 35 to 40 minutes, I will cover the content that I want to share, and the rest of the time, we'll have some time for Q&A. While this is going on, as Namita has mentioned, you can keep using the chat function to ask questions, to respond when I ask questions, and so on. So my eye will constantly be on the chat also. So if there's something, then you can keep asking there. I'm trusting you can see the screen. Namita, is the screen visible?
Yes, Ramesh.
Okay,
The screen
perfect.
is, yeah.
All right. So let me start off with my own story, right? Because Namita told so many things. You must be like, "Arey, ye banda hai kya?" She's saying chartered accountant, MBA, storyteller. How did this happen? So let me quickly tell you my story because this is a session on storytelling, and I like to use the concept or framework called Ikigai. For those of you who have heard it, you know what it is. For those who have not, let me just quickly explain it to you. It's a Japanese framework which basically says that your joy in life, you get ultimate joy in life if you're able to work in something where all four elements come into place. What are these four elements? One element is your ability. What is it that you're really good at doing? Two is economics. What is it that society is willing to pay you for? Three is your passion. What do you want to do? What gives you joy personally to do? And four is social need. Does society really need it? So these are the four things that we all try to somehow try and match in all of our jobs, which is what I've been doing. And it's been the search for Ikigai which has kind of gotten me here. So how has that happened, right? So let me start off with the first choice, which is to become a CA. And nobody would probably say that I want to become a CA because it's my passion. I mean, great. There might be some people like that too. I was not one of those. So for me, it was more saying, okay, I might be good with numbers, and I think it'll be economically a good profession. And I went into it. It's not really great thought that was put into that choice. Like most of us, right? When you grow up, it's like engineer, doctor, CA. You would pick up one of those. So that's what happened. But I realized working in the first job that I was not really enjoying my work. The passion was not there. And few friends were kind of giving the CAT or MBA exam. I said, okay, let me also try it. And I got through to IMA. And there it was slightly more interesting for me. I was, more engaged in that work. And post IMA, I worked with a consulting firm, management consulting firm called Feedback Infra for about 7 years. And that's where I think I really enjoyed my work too. So while I was good at that, it was matching my ability and it was economically viable. I think for me, the most interesting thing was I was really kicked about working with the people that I had and about the work also. However, the missing piece for me was the social impact, right? So because we were working in private healthcare for large, rich clients and for private equity funds. So I was always feeling that, hey, I'm not able to do work in the social sector. And that thing, kept constantly biting at the back of my head for many years. And finally, I decided to take the plunge and join an NGO called Be Able in 2011. So Be Able is even now one of the leading skill development firms based in Delhi. And so, at Be Able, people would share, would train youth in basic skills and then give them employment. And so I would kind of, work in that area. So, great. So I was, it was paying reasonably well. Definitely social impact is there. I was, great team of people. So again, I was very engaged working there. But somewhere I realized down the line that I was struggling from an ability point of view. The reason why is that I realized that in the sector like in Be Able, your biggest, you know, client is the government. And so your real skill does not become how well can you train, how well can you place people, but how well can you deal with the government in managing payments, in chasing up, in getting new projects and all. And I realized I don't have the ability to really succeed there. So I realized I won't, longer term, I will constantly be frustrated in a space like this. So which is why I said, okay, let me do something else. I left Beable in 2014, and then life took a complete crazy turn. You'll be like, ye kahan se aa gaya? Because I started a startup called Captivator, which is into history storytelling. How? Because I was always into history. I used to love reading history. And this was the time when we are all crazy about doing something on our own, mid 30s. So along with a couple of batchmates, we said India has great monument stories, but nobody's telling them well. So we built a mobile app called Captivator to tell the stories of monuments like Qutub Minar, Taj Mahal, etc., in an evocative and engaging way. And I wrote the stories for it. So great experience doing it. I think I was completely passionate. It was completely in my ability. And hopefully you could say that there's a social need also, but economics was not there at all. So nobody wanted to pay for an app like that. So that kind of crashed and burned. It is still there. The app is still there. So in case you're in Delhi, Agra, Jaipur, you should check it out. It's got some great tours. So now I was in a crossroads. What do I do? And somehow, I stumbled into this world of storytelling training and realized, hey, wait a minute. If I train in this concept of storytelling, then that matches everything for me. I'm reasonably good at it. It is something that I absolutely love doing. I love this whole concept of storytelling. It works economics, and there's a social need also. And so for me, that became that this is my ikigai. And whether I was working with balance sheet data as my CA, as a CA days, uh, business data during MBA, social data during my social impact, or history, the underlying principles of storytelling were all the same. And that's how I kind of started doing this full time since about 4.5 years ago. So that's what you find me doing now. So I help leaders like you become better at your work by using the power of these techniques called storytelling, right? So that's my journey, that's my ikigai. You could also probably use this to kind of craft your own journey. But now let me talk to you about why storytelling is powerful. Right now, all of you are constantly communicating to different stakeholders, whether it is donors or investors, employees, your beneficiaries or users, or society as a whole, right? And in doing all of these communications, you'll always find some or the other barriers, right? That your message is not getting across. People are not understanding what you're trying to say. So which is what we want to do. So we want to try and make sure that your message gets across. The best way to do that is through the power of various techniques. So it's not just one thing called a story. It's a vast umbrella of techniques known as storytelling. Now, of course, we'll give you a little overview of what are these techniques and what some deep dive into some of those. But let's take a step back and then say, why is this useful? Okay, stories are good for entertainment, but Ravi, is it really useful when I'm trying to explain something to someone, when I'm trying to pitch my NGO, etc.? Is it? It is. So it's massively useful because of many advantages that the story format gives you. I'm going to talk to you about one very powerful advantage: using a quiz. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a quiz wherein there will be a poll. The poll questions will start coming up on the screen in a simple, quiz, 3 questions. Obviously, no cheating, so you can't Google or ask anything, outside. Just go with your gut. Whatever is your first reaction about, what the answer is, just choose that. Don't worry too much. It's anonymous in any case. Nobody will know what you chose. And we will see how many of you get the right answer, right? And these are simple questions. We have all learned them in school, so no problems. All right, so I'm hoping everybody's ready for the quiz. Here we go. Question number 1, right on your screen. In trigonometry, what is sine A? Is it adjacent by hypotenuse, hypotenuse by opposite, opposite by hypotenuse, or adjacent by opposite? Don't worry too much about right or wrong. Just go ahead, click. Okay, we got about 35 responses, 38, 45, 60% of people have responded. I'll probably wait till about 75, 70%. Vasumati is saying you should add an option. I forgot. Vasumati, I would probably add I don't even know. So don't know, don't care is an option that I would add. Okay, 72%. Let's end this poll now, guys, and let's see what is it that people have. So it's not there, Sharda. I know that. So I'm going to share the results to see what is it that people have written. So can you see the results? So people have chosen option 1 as the highest, and then there are option 2, 3, and 4, right? So let's see what the real answer is. The answer is opposite by hypotenuse. Option 3. Oh my. Man, think about it, right? Trigonometry was not an optional subject in school. All of us have studied it. I mean, can you try and remember how many hours we wasted? Sorry, how many hours we spent learning that, doing those sums of trigonometry? And yet, when we ask a simple question about it now, it's all gone. Unfortunately, that's the nature of human knowledge. So, okay, that's how things are. No worries, okay. I will move on to a better, different quiz. Let's see if second question number 2 you're able to do better. So poll 2 is coming up your way soon. Question number 2 is on history. Here we go. When did the second battle of Panipat happen? 1479, 1626, 1556, 1632. 17, 19, 20, 26, 27, 30 responses. It's quite fascinating to see the responses building one by one. 57, 59. So was it a guess? That's a good follow-up question. I must ask that. Okay, 69% people have voted. I'll just wait for a few seconds. All right, 75% votes. Okay, so let's share the results. 1556 say most of you, about 43%, and about this, 57% say the rest. Let's see what the answer is. It is 1556. Well done, most of you. And I don't know how many of you guessed that. And if that was a cold guess, then not bad. You did well. But again, stuff, simple dates like this, Ravindra is acknowledging that it's completely a guess, and say so is Vasumati saying. So these are dates and these are facts and figures that you had to learn. You had to read, reread, revise, memorize. These are definite exam questions. You didn't really have an option. And yet, we don't remember stuff like this. Okay, so let me now go to question number 3. Let's see if you're slightly better at the third question. I'm somehow hopeful that you'll do better in this third question. Somehow, something tells me in my mind. I don't know what. So question number 3 is this. What is the lesson from the hare and the tortoise story? Tortoises are faster than hares. The begun is half done. It's important to take frequent breaks, or slow and steady wins the race. Oh my God, the responses are coming much faster at a much faster pace now. 66% already. 72, 75, 76. Fascinating, yeah? Okay, so 79% people have voted. Let me end this now. And let me share the results. Wow. 89% of you think the answer is number 4. Is it so? It is fascinating. How, yeah? How did all of you, I mean, not all of you, I'm really admiring those 8 of you who said, no, I will not go with the tried and tested answer. I will make my own answer. I'll chart my own path. Yeah. So Shobha is saying it's easy because it's moral of the story. Yeah. And that's the big thing, right, Shobha? It is a story. Stories are memorable. If you're able to tell your information in the form of a story, then the chances of the audience remembering and understanding and remembering what you had to say, it really goes up. So that is a superpower that stories have. You may, in a meeting, in a presentation to a client, to a donor, you may tell them 20 things, but out of those 20 things, if there was one story, after a few days, they might most likely remember that story, but not those, detailed data points and the tables and the Excel and whatever else you showed them, right? Because those things fade away from our memory, right? So yeah, so stories are powerful. It doesn't mean that it's a guarantee that people will remember, but it significantly improves the odds of people remembering. So this is just one superpower of stories. Stories have many other advantages or superpowers, but I just thought I'll give you like a quick taster of saying why is storytelling powerful. Now I'm going to actually demonstrate that to you with a lot of examples of storytelling. And to start with, we are going to actually talk about this concept known as a human story or a beneficiary story. Right. So there was this famous Rokia study by Carnegie Mellon University in the US, right? And the way they did that was that they divided the class into 2 groups, And each group was given, or each person in across all the groups were given $5, notional $5. And what they had to do is, after hearing some information about an Africa-based NGO, they were asked to donate money to that NGO. So there were two groups. Group one got something like this. Food shortages in Malawi are affecting more than 3 million children. In Zambia, severe rainfall deficits have resulted in a 42% crop drop in maize production. 3 million Zambians face hunger. 4 million Angolans have been forced to flee their homes. More than 11 people. A lot of powerful numbers and data and stats. Okay, so this was, group A. And group B was given something else, not this data and stats. They were given some part of the data and stats, but they were also given this. Any money that you donate will go to Rokia, a 7-year-old girl who lives in Mali in Africa. Rokia is desperately poor and faces the threat of severe hunger, even starvation, and so on. And then it talked about, if you lend money, then if you donate money, then it will go to helping Rokia and others like her, other members of the community, right? So that's the whole difference between the two. Now, what happened? They asked people to donate. So these guys donated about from the $5, about on an average $1.14 to the cause. Now, if I consider this option 2, which is option B, how much percentage more do you think people would have donated in option B? 10% more, 20% more, 30% more? How much more? Double, 50%, says Purvi. 50% says Anuja. Asmati says, okay, 100% more, says Smita. 70% says Priya, says 80%. Yeah, so all of you have very high numbers here. The entire dollar, says Madhuri. Okay, that may be Madhuri. I think you're kind. You'd probably have given. These are graduate kids in the US, so probably they're a little more. Yeah. So what happened was, a lot of you are on the money. It was slightly more than double. So about 2x. So very, very well, guessed by a lot of you. And that is the power of the human story, right? We are able to see the data, but for us to act, sometimes we need the story. So you need both, by the way, and I'll talk to you about, the caveat here. You should not be dependent on only one, but the story is important. And there's a nice quote by Mother Teresa, which brings it out, right? That if I look at the mass, I will never act, but if I look at the one, I will. There are a lot of, examples of these where people will focus on the one, the person who is getting impacted, and how the intervention is helping that one person become better and improve in life, and then extrapolate to talk about the overall mass. So you do need the balance between both. So it can't be that you only focus on cherry picked individual anecdotes, because if you do that, then you have a trap. What is the trap? The trap is this, where you say, okay, you use cherry pick anecdotes that go against the data. That's troubling. So don't do that, because then you will lose credibility with your audience. If you've got, let's say, if you're doing some intervention in a particular area, and you ran that intervention across 1,000 children, and out of the 1,000 children, 900 children did not show any improvement, but 100 did. And now you can, from the 100 who showed an improvement, you can spin a very evocative story that, hey, let me tell you the story of X who was so, yeah, and this is the improvement that happened. You have to, tell the audience the whole story, that, it was 900 people did not show an improvement, but 100 showed, and let me tell you the story of one. Then it is still fine. But if you just cherry pick, that's the only caveat I'm going to tell you. And, we see examples of this all the time, right? So I'll give you an example of when people cherry pick evidence and then spin it as if that is the whole story. So this was a example that I saw on LinkedIn some time back. Somebody had posted this on LinkedIn, saying Keanu Reeves had posted this. So, irrespective of who posted it, what you can read here is interesting, right? So he's saying that my friend's mom has eaten healthy all her life, never consumed alcohol or any bad food, exercised every day, very active, blah, blah, blah. She is now 76, has skin cancer, bone marrow cancer, and extreme osteoporosis. So case study 1. Case study 2. My friend's father eats a lot of bacon, butter, fat, never exercised, out in the sun, burnt to a crisp every summer, basically lived life to his fullest. He's 81 and doctors say his health is that of a young person. And then he says, you go do whatever you want, it doesn't matter. What is the problem with a story like this? Could be just one off, no evidence, says Asmati. Generalizing from the particular, well said, Ramya. Misleading, yes, Shreya. They are exceptions, Sharda. Very well said. Yeah. One off cases. Yeah. So you will have exceptions everywhere, right? And you're using the wrong example to extrapolate. You're using extreme cases. Um, Kushwant Singh and BKS Iyengar. So that we'll have to talk about that, Ravindra, sometime. So one anecdotal cannot be generalized. So I just want you to kind of know that caveat. So visually, if I were to explain that, this is how I would explain it, right? You can't extrapolate from one to say that, hey, the entire world is like this. That can be misleading. At the same time, if you have data like this, which says that, hey, this is my data, if you just give the data, it's boring, it's difficult to relate, which is why you need the data and you need the story. But the story should be representative of the data that, 90% of people are finding this beneficial. Let me tell you the story of one such person. That's how you kind of, balance the two. And we talked about Mother Teresa, one great soul from east of India. And let's take one more great soul from the east to east of India, which is from Bangladesh. This Muhammad Yunus, and he uses an evocative description to talk about this. He says you need to have a balance between two types of views. One he calls as a bird's eye view. He says, when I was doing my PhD and teaching, I developed a bird's eye view. I could see a wide spectrum, almost the whole world. It's basically the big picture, the data view, right? But you also need the worm's eye view, which is that, what is the situation from the ground level? And he's saying, it's at the worm's eye view that you can actually start acting on the problem. And to prompt your audience into action, you need a balance of both. So I just thought I'll give you that, quite caveat of the need for data plus story. But today's session is focusing on the story because we have time restrictions. So I'm going to talk about how do you craft and tell a good human story, human beneficiary story, right? So that's the next 15-20 minutes that we're going to talk about. Um, in yeah, okay, Babaji ka dhaba. I don't know about that. Yeah, so again, you can share some of those in the links, and it'll be useful. Right. So now everybody knows, a lot of people know about this power of the human story, but there is a huge variability in execution. Writing that story is a bit of a science and an art. So I'm going to talk about that in the next few slides. So I looked at, preparing for this, I looked at examples of stories, different NGOs from India and abroad, and you get a sense, how people are doing differently, how people are approaching about multiple approaches using examples, right? So we'll talk about each, 4 or 5 social organizations. In that story, you need to tell me what works and what does not work, right? So let's start with the first one, which is Keto, right? Many of you would have, followed Keto, and you'd see their ads typically on YouTube or other social media. So what does it normally look like? It looks somewhat like this. It's a fundraiser ad typically, and it's a very specific story of an individual person who needs funds for typically like an operation or something, which is time sensitive, right? So I'm not going to play that because I'm sure many of you have seen it. So that's the Keto approach. Can you tell me what do you think works in that approach? And we will talk about what doesn't work, but can you tell me what works in that approach? Empathy, yeah, well said, Disha. The photograph of the child, visuals help, emotional pitch, sympathy, compelling, yeah, Shreya, because there's a time thing that there's guilt. So guilt we'll talk about, Shraddha, it's probably on the other side. Extreme personalization, it's very specific, Ramya. Who is it going to go for? Urgent help required, specific beneficiary. It's a Human Hope Foundation, Shimla. Can you tell me your name so that I can call you by the name instead of it's compelling, the photographs and the guilt. It's time bound. Yeah, there's a CTA, Ravindra. That's true. Hey, Vikram, thanks. Yeah, so you're right. So all of these are some of the advantages of this. It evokes sympathy, there's immediacy, and there's a specificity, right? So all of these are some benefits. What do you think does not work in this kind of a story approach? Hmm. It is invasive. Yeah, Sylvia, that is true. Overemphasis trying too hard. That is true. Yeah, it is repetitive. Too whiny and cranky. Yeah, there are too many such stories. Too much pathos. Yeah, Shubha, a nice word. It glorifies pain. What do you mean by authenticity, Vaishali? Are you saying it doubts the authenticity? Nirmala, that's a great point. It is depressing, right? And you don't want to leave your audience in a state of guilt and depression. Yeah, it cannot work all the time. So I think it's a very, it can hit you once and you might donate, but after a point you get, inured to it. It's almost like, at the traffic signal, beyond a point you just learn to ignore it, right? So that tends to happen. So yeah, there's also outcome uncertainty. You don't know whether it will actually help the person or not, because it's a big surgery or whatever, right? And yeah, it appeals to guilt and pity. It leaves you with the feeling that, there are so many more people. How can, you actually do this? So yeah, so keto has some of these challenges. So let's look at another example. This is from this company, this organization called Concern India Foundation, and they do, I think, livelihood development primarily in North India. So let's look at an example of a story that they did. Yeah, Shrikant, that's a good point. Yeah, so it kind of jars when you're trying to do something else on YouTube. So this is about a 25-year-old Lakshmi Devi, artisan from Sanwada village, husband and two children, part of a skill upgradation course. She's been trained in art forms like applique, tagai, mirror work, blah blah blah. And after receiving the training, she has learned new ways, better knowledge. She now works with a group of women, and then she starts making the money now. Yeah, so that's the example of Concern India Foundation. Okay, now can you tell me what works here? Hmm. It's hope. That's a good word, Purvi. Yeah. It's a positive story, right? Where you're kind of saying that, hey, if you do this, then you will be able to improve people. The specificity part, Ramya, may not be as applicable here because it's saying many people like Lakshmi Devi. But yeah, it's fair point. It's a positive story. You can see the change, Milind. That's a great point. The result, yeah, Mary. Seeing the change in the result is always very useful. Reproducibility, nice word, Asumati. Teach a man to fish, yeah, Subuhi, that's a good one. Bringing hope, it focuses on the outcome, on the overall change. All of those are great ones, yeah. So those are some of the things that even I saw. It's positive emotions. There is outcome confidence that you know that it will actually work. Portrays a problem in micro level along with the change. Brilliant points, guys. We should, by the way, Namita, we should save the chat. Yeah, it's very high, good quality points that are coming through. Now, what doesn't work here? A lot of text, fair enough. Doesn't connect to a large view of numbers. That maybe it would have done that later, Sahil. I'm not so sure. Data on past successes, yeah. Overtelling, one of many stories, graphics and large text. Okay. I'm glad that you're getting into some of these details of copy and stuff that we can come into later. In fact, I feel that it doesn't have one critical element in the story, which is, now, if I ask you that who is Lakshmi Devi, can you describe Lakshmi Devi to me? How will you describe her? Artisan, that's all you know. Yeah, Shiny. Okay, she's a lady, rural woman. Yeah, there's no background. So, Shrikant, I wouldn't, yeah, sorry, 1 minute. Just show you that again. So you just are kind of told that husband, two children. You not even like forget her face, okay? But that's nothing much about who is she as a person, right? So that part is missing. So you can't relate to her as much as you should be able to, and you don't see the struggle in the story. A story should show some struggle, that this was the real challenge that she was facing, and this is how we managed to help her beat that challenge. So those are some of the things that are slightly missing in the Concern India story. Let's look at another example, which is Akshay Patra. So Akshay Patra, I find they're pretty good in how they tell their stories. I'm going to give you an example in more detail. So they have got this website called Stories of Children. Uh, so if I kind of go to the website, so this is their thing called Stories of Children, and they've got stories of teachers also. and it's quite good. So every blog post is a story of one child, and quite amazing that they continue to publish it, right? So they published in October, November. So it's quite recent. It's not that they published once and then they forgot about it. So they keep adding to these stories, which is great. And let me give you an example of one story, right? So there's a story of Shravani. So let's just read about it a little bit. So it says, okay, education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. So, and then, that's a nice quote that they start with. So they talk about saying the harder you work towards achieving a passion, the easier it gets to reach your goal. That is the motto by which Shravani follows. Who's Shravani? She's a student of 9th standard in a Zilla Parishad in Sangareddy district, Telangana. Okay.
Ravi,
Now
sorry
that,
to interrupt. The page is not visible. You'll have to share the
oh,
page
okay.
also.
So sorry. So sorry. Okay. I realized. Okay. So I think I'd done the share screen. I should do a desktop share.
You'll have to select that web page and then share it.
Okay. So earlier there was a desktop share. Now I'm not able to see that option, but
Yeah.
can you guys see it now? Sorry about that. So yeah,
Yes,
so
yes.
I showed you this page first, which is Akshay Patra's Stories of Children page. And they've got, multiple stories like this. Thanks for interrupting, Namita. I would have otherwise continued. And so this is a story of, one such girl, as I mentioned. Simple visual. So some of you may think this is too much copy. I think it's fine because it tells the story in a very evocative way. So it talks about, Shravani, so student of 9th. Now here they are describing who she is as a person, not just saying she's a 9th standard student in this place. Didn't show interest in co-curricular. Whenever there is free time, she will sit and read books and solve mathematical problems. Suddenly you know a little bit more about her. Then they go deeper. When did it all start? She would stand and scribble on walls with chalk pieces and teach her grandfather like he was her only student. What a lovely piece of information. Suddenly you can picture her in her house, a small little girl with a chalk and an old guy sitting in front of her and she's teaching him. Fascinating, right? So and then they talk about okay, the funny part is she would reprimand him for not writing neatly in his books. He always wanted to see her grow up to be a school teacher. Suddenly you know her and you're rooting for Shravani. She's not just one stat, a faceless, nameless stat. She is a real life breathing person and you can relate to her because they have given her qualities, human real qualities that you can connect with, right? So that is the power of doing this. So let me come back to the screen. For that, I might have to stop share and reshare again. So that's what Akshay Patra does. So please go through their site. You'll learn a lot in terms of how they write these stories. What is working here? Any quick thoughts? What works here? It's descriptive, many examples. That's true. Humanizing. Yeah, that's true, Subhuhi. I like that word, Ramya. It's relatable. That's a big difference that I find here compared to some of the earlier ones. And you can connect with that person. So it's basically for me C plus relatability is a very critical component. Yeah, you have to really get to know your beneficiary and try and make them relatable in a human way. And there is this concept saying that do not evoke or invoke the audience's pity, but invoke their appreciation and inspiration. The audience should hear a story of a Shravani and not feel, "Arey yaar, bechari," but should feel, "Wow, amazing. And I'm so inspired seeing her commitment." And that is a change that you have to do. And I relate this to how Raju Hirani sometimes tells his stories, right? So in his stories, he doesn't make you feel pity for people who are, not in a good position. So there's this classic scene in Lage Raho Munna Bhai. I don't know how many of you have seen that movie. So in that, there is this old age home, old person's home. It's called the second innings home. And so one guy gets kind of, you could say, dumped by his son, and he's very sad that he's been asked to live in a second innings home, in an old age home. So he comes and he tells his Dukhbari kahani to his other people who have been living there, and he's hoping to get their pity. And what do? They will, make fun of him. They kind of start, saying this: if you're going to be making, asking for our pity, then don't come and stay here. Here we are not bothered about what our children did. We are bothered, this is our second innings, and we want to have fun. And they start telling jokes, etc. And in 5 minutes he's laughing, right? So So that's the quick transformation in that scene that basically tells, don't, pity is not a very action oriented one, at least long term action oriented. So if you want that long term action, invoke the audience's inspiration, not their pity. Yeah. So that's what works for me in the Akshay Patra stories. What probably doesn't work is that, I'm not seeing the struggle or conflict play out. So let me give you an example of where that is actually done. So Charity Water is an international NGO, and they do a lot of a good job in, building water sources for sustainable water sources for communities. They have a website where they have a lot of stories. So in that, I'm going to show you an example again of Charity Water. So this is a story of a guy called Asharfi Lal. Um, and this is, again, the copy is quite huge. Of course, there are pictures, there's a video and all of that. So, but it brings out the story in far more vivid and rich detail. It doesn't start, by the way, with, hey, this is what Charity Water does. This is our background. This is our, yeah, no. It starts with the history and background of Asharfi Lal and why this intervention by Charity Water matters so much. So Asharfi Lal is, basically he lives in an area where water is a problem in one of the dry parts of the state. And then he says, they did wells, but the wells started failing and the government started creating repair teams. And Asharfi remembers when he came across one for the first time. Suddenly now they're describing
I'm
how he is as
sorry,
a person.
Ravi,
I was
again. I'm sorry again, Ravi. Can't
I'm
see the
so
screen.
sorry. This is so irritating.
Okay.
I'm used to the desktop. Why is that option not there? Hang on. Just give me a minute. So
Ravi, you
weird.
can use control and share multiple things if you want.
Acha, okay. Okay. Let me see. Hold shift. Yeah, okay. I think I figured it out. Thank you. Thanks, Dhawal. So you guys can see the screen?
Yes, Ravi, can see the screen.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so he basically talks about he started seeing people repair these wells, and then he says, I was curious. I started following the mechanics, tagged along. What I observed, I quite liked. At the age of 16, he started repairing wells, and then he went home and he made tools. He practiced on his own time. He called a local government official and said, come see what I have done. Now, what are they showing with all of this? All these details is basically telling you as a potential donor that this guy, Asharfi, is self-driven. He puts fight. He wants to learn on his own. And so he gets a job. But after he gets a job, he got restless working for the government. He wanted to go faster, be more efficient, after a better guarantee of quality service. And so he started and his own business. So itna lamba they're setting the context because they want to give that context. Why? Because then that comes to the real problem that he faces. That he's trying to fix as many wells as he can. 24 years he worked long and hard, forming a reputation, constantly busy, but steady wasn't good enough. Why? Because if he wanted to grow, he needed venture capital and he got it. So here is where in the story, WaterAid finally comes in. They've written so much, WaterAid comes in here. That's the context of, when you're telling the story of your NGO, you are the backup supporting actor. Your beneficiary is the hero, and you tell the story of that hero with a lot of this context. Tell the audience as to who are they, what is their background, why do they need your intervention so much, and how will it help them. And then they talk about why and how it actually helps Asharfi Lal, because the Charity Water invested $64,000 and they repaired 50 wells and 100 villages, and then all the stats and everything comes in, right? So and then there's a video there. So the point I want to try and make here, can you guys see this?
Yes, Ravi, can see.
Great, perfect. Now, the point I want to make here is that it, apart from the relatability, there is also this concept of conflict and resolution. You are giving the audience a problem faced by the hero. The hero is Asharfi Lal, the beneficiary, and how you as the organization are helping the hero to solve that problem. Right. So this to me is the highest kind of level of storytelling. Probably, it pretty much works here. I might just say it probably lacks a little bit of personal impression and humor, as in the person writing the story can bring in some of their own observations there, but I think that's fine, right? So I think this is an example of saying, there are multiple levels that you can use. You can pick and choose what works for you in your organization, in your context. Yeah, so Madhuri, now I would say Madhuri is asking about whether the donor will have time to read so much, right? So I would say you create the story in full and then create versions of it, create shorter versions of it. A 2-minute version that you can quickly explain, maybe a pictorial version that you can send, maybe a short video version. So, but the core of the story, the written part of the story, you can, I think, write down in full detail and then keep having versions of it. Right? So that's my quick answer to that question. Now I want to spend 5 minutes in giving you a quick summary of what I talked about so far and a framework, right? Because frameworks are useful. It helps you to create and craft these stories using a structure. So what is the structure? You can use these 7 questions to craft your beneficiary story. So let me start with the questions. Number 1, who is the person that you're talking about? So introduce a protagonist, give them vivid, relatable, and relevant characteristics. So, for example, if you tell me Asharfi Lal loves eating Bengan Bharta, I'd be like, that's not relevant. It is a relatable character, but it's not relevant. So it has to be relevant. So he's curious, he's restless. So that makes me want to support him. So you're making him, open. You're making him relatable and making me want to root for him. Shravani is, she loves to teach and she's very sincere. So those are the things that, make me want to root for them. Give a little bit of the context also. When and where is this happening? This is more like hygiene. So the place and time. And here is where you can use pictures and video to bring that out. So this is kind of context setting for your story. Then the goal. What is the conflict that they are trying to solve for? What is the most important goal that the protagonist is trying to go for? So can you quickly tell me, looking at the 2 stories, what was the goal for Shravani? To become a teacher. Yeah, Subhui. Yes. So you know very clearly what's her goal. And so Akshay Patra is playing a small role in that, in making sure that she gets the right nutrition so that she can attend school and finally fulfill her goal to become a teacher, right? So that you have to try and find out what is the goal that your audience is trying to achieve. So in Asharfi Lal's case, it was scaling up his pump repairing business. Now, that's the conflict of the story. Then comes the villain in the story. What makes the goal difficult to achieve? What's the obstacle in the goal? What's stopping them? So in case of Shravani, one of the obstacles is she doesn't probably get high quality nutritious food. In case of Asharfi Lal, money is a clear obstacle to whatever go up, and training to have higher order skills. How is the how are the obstacles overcome? So you, in telling this part of the story, you have to tell what will the hero do, what will you as in the NGO do, and what does the donor need to do. So there are 3 people coming together to solve that problem. What does the hero do? The hero brings in his enterprise, his skills, his connections, his drive. In case of Shravani, she brings in her sincerity, her effort. What does Charity Water bring? They bring in their advanced skills in water management and the tools. What does the donor bring? The money. Most often the donor is bringing the money. The skills is brought in by the NGO and the effort is brought in by the beneficiary. So those are what I call as challenges and counters to your story. And finally, the last point, what is the impact and what happens in the end? So what is the impact on the hero and the other stakeholders? What is a call to action? So maybe in this case, the impact is that he repaired 1,034 hand pumps in just 14 months, and you're asking for more funds. So that's how you typically end a story like this. So these are the 7 questions that you can use to frame your story. You will get, by the way, a PDF with these 7 questions and some other reading sources that I'll share with you. So you don't have to worry about taking this down. I just have a couple of more slides and then we'll open for questions, guys. So these are some learning resources. Again, I'll share this with you in the PDF. So these are books that have helped me to hone my storytelling skills. So you can also read and become better storytellers as you read these. In addition, I thought some of the resources from my own source. So I wrote the story as an example of a beneficiary story for Uber. So it'll give you an idea of how you can tell some of these stories. In addition, if you want to get storytelling content from me on a regular basis, I have a weekly storytelling newsletter called Story Rules on Saturday. So every Saturday I share something interesting from the world of storytelling, and this is across all, not just non for profit. It's for profit everywhere. But you will again learn something that you can keep slowly improving that skill of yours. So if you'd like to learn that, you can subscribe to that newsletter here. So that's about it from my side, guys. Any questions that you have, we can answer those. Before that, these are my coordinates in terms of LinkedIn is a place you can connect with me. I'm also reasonably active on Twitter, but LinkedIn is where it's more active for most of the time. We are open for questions now, guys. This was good fun. And so for questions, Namita, one option is, do you think people can just put on the chat? Would that be faster, or would you like to do a hand raise thing?
We'll just try out the hand raise thing, Ravi. If it goes
Sure,
on,
sure,
then
sure.
we'll take on the chat. And before jumping on to the questions, I want to put in the link of our feedback form. I want you guys to spend your next 2 minutes in filling out this feedback so that we understand if our webinar is making any difference. So just 2 minutes, and you can please go ahead and fill the feedback.
Thanks, Namita. Thank you, Vasumati. That's a good point, Sharda. You should.
Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Shashi, please go ahead with your question, please.
Yes, ma'am. I have a question. My organization name is Navjivan Foundation. Working for near about 18
Yeah, go
years.
ahead, Sashi.
Sorry? Sorry?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yes. I worked from 2003, and this organization affiliated with the UN Council in the year of 2017. And this organization is only Indian organization work on legal public grievance and awareness with some other activities. From 2003 to now, I worked in more rural area from north to south. South means I have not go to Chennai and some other states like this, but I reach in Telangana also. And more than lakh volunteers are active with my organization.
Sorry, Sashi, from a time point of view, may I request you to ask the question that you have in mind, please?
Question is, I don't believe this fundraising because from 2003 to now, I have not received any fund from any type of people, neither CSR nor government. Only the public
Okay.
support carried to my
Okay.
organization from 2003 to 2021. I have no
Amazing.
belief on this fundraising. I only believe the public support.
Yeah, so which is great. So even that means you're telling a powerful story to the public that they believe you. And sometimes even good stories are those which are, actions speak louder than words, right? So the work that you're doing is probably so powerful that people believe that, right? Sometimes, of course,
Mr. Liar, just a minute.
telling.
I have also attended the World Bank meeting. I have attended the UN meeting, but on every meeting I given my consent. First, award to the public. If you do something, award to the public, and public support can help you a bigger organization, not by this fundraising. I am not. I'm not. I'm not a
Okay,
Got it.
looks like, yeah, looks like there is a technical issue there. Yeah, Ravi, there are a couple
Can
of
I go
questions
in?
on the chat. Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
so Mao has asked an interesting one. Yeah, so definitely Mao. Yeah, so confidentiality is super critical. Now, the good thing in stories is you don't need to actually take the name, right? So you can always change the name, change the location, everything, because the story's impact would still be the same. So please change the name, location. Don't have to reveal those, and yet people will be able to connect and empathize if the other details are there. So you don't have to kind of share that. So Shiny is saying our contact with beneficiaries is reduced to quite an extent. How do we ensure to get the right stories? Yeah, that is true, Shiny. I think a lot of these stories are easier to find if you are able to actually meet people, and face-to-face meetings is when you'll actually get them. What this actually means is you may have to try harder through the phone and through WhatsApp calls and other means to ask more and more questions, right? So some of the books that I shared with you will give you what questions can you ask to find the incidents in people's lives, right? So if you go back to Shravani's example, the person who's written the story has not just gone and met her once and then said, okay, Shravani is this girl, 9th standard, whatever. He's probably asked her family members, can you tell me more about her? What would she do? How would she behave when she was young? And those are some of the questions that they have used to craft that story. And which is why, there's a lot of Q&A that happens at the back of a good story, which is what you should also do. If I were to give you one good, recommendation for a book, Shiny, you should read this book called Putting Stories to Work. In fact, Sell with a Story is also very good in terms of asking the right question to elicit the right story. So Sell with a Story by Paul Smith, you should read. It'll give you some idea of, how you can come across the right stories. Okay, Smita is saying, what are the different platforms on which beneficiaries can be used apart from social media? So Smita, I think on all platforms there are, stories can be told. I tell my stories mostly on LinkedIn, but you can also tell that with some tweaks on Twitter and other social media platforms. A lot of stories are very well told face to face. You can, tell that with a lot of detail, etc. You can tell them when you are making presentations. So I think stories are platform agnostic, right? The only thing is you may have to tweak it a little bit. So a Twitter story will be very different, very short. An Instagram story will be very visual. LinkedIn has, some of these posts which are 1300 characters, so you have to make it tight and so on. So the skeleton of the story will be the same, but just the appearance will change depending upon the platform. Lopa, I didn't understand your question. The method you spoke is more effective for certain kinds of interventions. I think it kind of applies in all, but maybe if you have a specific intervention in mind, you can write about that. Shrikant is saying it's a refresher. Hey, thanks, Shrikant. Oh, that's a good one. Does using humor or lighthearted approach work, Ramya? Good question. So humor can be tricky. It definitely, it's a bit of a high risk, high return thing, right? So if you're able to use it well, the audience will remember you more. And entertainment is a great way to engage the audience. But you have to be careful in not offending people, and people get offended easily nowadays, right? So humor at your own cost is always fine. You can make fun of yourself, but making fun of anybody else is a little tricky. So just uh, keep that in mind. And if your audience is kind of in that setting that, oh, I know that people are going to be made fun of, then it's okay. But otherwise it's a little bit of a risk. What is the best channel for storytelling? Parminder, I think every channel works. As I mentioned, you just have to tailor the story for the channel. Yeah, so can we use with videos? For sure. You can use videos and then use a little bit of text in the video to make it come out alive. I'm just trying to think, are there some good examples that I can think of? So so many guys do very good short video based storytelling. But I'm just trying to see from a social impact point of view. I think Charity Water is good. You should look up. They have some good videos on their website. Shreya is saying, if you're the middleman and not an NGO, can you use the same principles? It's a good question, Shreya. So for example, even Dana Mojo is basically like a intermediary, right? But notice Dana Mojo is not telling the story of the beneficiary. It's telling the story of the NGO, right? So if you looked at the video that Dana Mojo shared, it was not the story of the end beneficiary, but the story of an individual NGO who will benefit from Dana Mojo's services. So it was actually following all the principles that we talked about. They, by the way, they have not taken this whatever framework, but they have used it, because they've talked about what are the problems being faced by an NGO, how is it that Dana Mojo services help them, and what is the final impact or benefit, right? So it actually followed that to a T. The only thing was it was a fictional story. You can use fictional stories also, but you can also try and build it across real stories. So if I were Keto, I would tell stories of NGOs who have benefited from Keto's platform. That's one way to do it. Tirthraj, is influencer marketing right for fundraising for CSOs? If yes, how? That kind of goes beyond my specialty area, because that is into social media influencer marketing. You should try it out, Tirthraj. I'm not so sure it'll work out. Can I put the names of the books in the chat? I'll do that in the end, Dhaval. If we share a few stories with you, would you be able to give input? Sharda, I may not be able to give too much time to it. I'll try my best. Time is always a constraint to do one-on-one consulting, but give it a go. If I have the time, I'll give my most fundraising stories appear very similar. How can I show you? But actually, Ramya, if you see, yeah, I mean, while there is a the structure or the framework might give it the appearance of being similar, every story will be about different protagonists, will be different conflicts, different struggles, different types of people. So I think in that variety, it will still stand out. People will still be interested to read. Definitely better than dull, boring statistics. So I think you should still try that. Okay, so Malti, I'm not sure exactly whether I understand that. With the current restrictions of the government for foreign fundraising, the stories related to the Indians and different nationalities does churn an interest. See, some stories resonate across borders here. They resonate across humanity, right? So Asharfi Lal's story, it doesn't matter that you're telling it to a foreign audience, because the characteristics of curiosity, of restlessness, they are across transcend borders. So I don't think you have to worry too much about saying Indian context. What you may have to do if you are writing your story for an international context is to give them some sense of the place that you might say Uttar Pradesh is India's largest state with a population equal to Brazil, just something like that, to kind of make them sense of what is this like. So the key thing is relatability. How can you make the story, the people, the context relatable to your audience? And you have to just make some of those tweaks there. Oh, Ramya is saying dismissive about data. Not at all, Ramya. I come from the world of data storytelling. So data storytelling is super critical. So as I mentioned, this is a small drop in the ocean of storytelling as a skill. I run, in fact, we were talking about that. Dhaval will probably share that with a small poll towards the end of this. I run a 4-week course on data storytelling, where it's all about data, right? So data is super critical. It's just that, there are so many skills that, I've decided to focus on this one element of beneficiary stories. So data stories is super critical. The bird's eye view is as important as the worm's eye view. Okay, they all end up looking the same. Smita is saying. So you don't have to worry about, I'm so sorry. A lot of stories looking the same, because it may not be that your beneficiary, your audience sits and reads all the story. You are reading all the story and you're feeling it's the same. But for your audience, they may just read 1 or 2 stories here and there, right? So don't worry about too much about stories looking the same. You have to keep publishing stories like how an Akshay Patra does, and keep publishing them on various platforms. I'm so sorry, guys. Suddenly something triggered. Keep publishing them on various platforms, and you will have a wide audience. People will read different stories, and they are not going to be comparing, saying, hey, the last story was exactly the same as this one, and so on. As long as each story is authentic, true, and is actually showing the impact and the change in the life of the audience, I think that's fine. Don't worry too much about the things being the same. Okay, Sharda is saying how much focus should we give to our approach or project strategy? Again, I'm not sure that I understood that, Sharda. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, we have a question from Nirmana. Yes,
Yeah.
miss. Please go ahead. Nirmana, please go ahead.
Just
Yeah, let's go ahead with the questions in the chat.
I'm just writing the names of the books.
Yeah.
That's it. These are the 4 books that I wrote there. Okay, Smita, good question. Very good question, right? Yeah, you cannot establish a direct relationship between revenue and stories. You cannot establish a direct relationship between revenue and many variables in the organization, right? So if you're providing training to your field staff on communication, how can you then say, okay, this has led to a direct impact on revenue? There are so many such things, right? So don't worry too much about this. So at the end of the day, go with maybe metrics which are closer to revenue. Maybe it could be that, am I seeing a greater audience engagement on my stories? So it could just be saying that, if you're posting on LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever, can I see better engagement on that platform vis-a-vis no stories? So that might give you a sense. Can I see, if I send out an email, newsletter email with the stories, can I see more people responding because of that? So you can have some of these proxy metrics to kind of see the impact of story. uh, how can you invest in storytelling? So I would say have a few people who are good at writing, who can be the story anchors or storytellers in the organization, who will actually go out and talk to different people and collate the stories and then write and share them. So it's a skill that may not be available in everyone. You may need to kind of get a few 2 or 3 people to anchor that skill, and then build it and keep writing more and more stories. Yeah, so Ramya, captured stories can feed into data and analytics for sure. So normally it's the stories are hidden in the data, right? So Ramya, which sector do you work in? BFSI, but BFSI in the social sector or in for profit? Oh, for profit. Okay. So let's say BFSI, right? So BFSI, let's say you are having a product like, and I'm going to try and take a BFSI example in the non-for-profit sector so that most people can relate to it. Let's say your product is educating people about being more smart with their finance. Let's say people who are getting some basic salary and as big basket delivery guys or something like that, and they're getting a 10,000, 15,000 salary, and they must be thinking, Arey, why should I bother to invest? Whatever money I get, I will put in cash or I'll keep in a savings account. But you want to explain to them, right? So let's say you have a organization which teaches them about the value of savings, a little bit putting money in mutual funds and so on. And you will have some stats and analytics about saying how many people are now saving, what has been the impact of that. Let's say initially you started, you had 100 beneficiaries, now it's become 500. Now 1,000 people are on your platform and saving, and cumulatively they're saving 10 lakh rupees every month, and so on, right? All of those are data and stats, and you'll keep adding on to it every month. Now that data and stats doesn't tell you the story on an individual. That individual story will be hidden in that data and stat. When you're saying 1,000 people are now saving, tell me the story of one such person. Let me tell you the story of Rakesh, who started on our platform. 1 year back, he used to earn a salary of 10,000 and he would not do any saving. And by the end of 3 months, he would not know where the money went. With us, he started saving, and he initially started saving only 100 rupees per month. Slowly, it became 500. And just last month, when he started saving over the last 1 year, he could save enough to buy a small tablet computer for his sister, who can now use it for her education. And now suddenly you have made the impact of your organization relatable to everybody. They know that, you know, you're helping thousands of people like Rakesh lead better lives through your intervention. The data is there, you know, 1,000 people, 10 lakh rupees, all of that. But it's that story of that one Rakesh that will make it more relatable. So that's how you balance both. Okay, Vikram is saying maybe a story is published and publicized for a specific period, then we may be able to track the revenue donation. Oh, okay. So you can track. Yeah, Vikram, that is true. So you can actually, in some situations, like Keto, for example, can very clearly track stories and revenue. So yeah, in a way you can tag some of those stories with donations, and you'll know, actually you will know how is it that it actually impacts. But I would say don't get too bothered by the revenue question. You have faith in the power of stories. Keep telling authentic, true, powerful stories. It will benefit you, but it will not get you in the immediate. It's not an immediate term return. It's a longer term, mid to longer term return. So keep investing in that. Okay, presenting organizations 10-minute documentary movies consisting information about development initiative in the CSR meetings will work. So Suprit, I think it will, but it depends upon how well it is told. Often some of those videos are very, you know, that produced for a corporate video audience. So you'll have to actually invest in telling a story, and it's not going to be easy. Get a storyteller to write down the story first, figure out, you know, what are some beneficiary stories that you can include in that, and so on. So if it is told well, definitely it can work. Sahil is saying, do you see nonprofits going into some fiction to complementary? So fiction, I would say, if it is very relatable to fact, then it's fine. Like the Dana Mojo story, it's kind of not real, but it is close to real, because I'm sure if I ask Namita and Dhaval, they'll have many real life stories of the people that they had, right? So I'm sure, you know, fiction like that is fine, but fiction which is completely manufactured may not be, because people will start doubting, is this real? Is this really happened? So that's the only caveat that I'll kind of, you know, keep in mind. Maybe we'll take a couple of more questions, guys, and then we'll close for the day. Sharda, I'm not sure whether I understood your question. Vernacular, Vikram, definitely works, right? Stories are, again, language agnostic. You know, every language you can make it work. Again, some tweaks maybe need to be done. The kind of words that you use, the kind of phrases, how you make it more relatable in that language, you may have to change. But I think definitely stories are, you know, they transcend everything. Facts tell, stories sell is a phrase. That's a good one, Ravindra. Yeah. Facts are also important, though. You need facts and stories both to sell. But yeah, it is powerful. Thanks for that, Sharda, for the comment. Hey, Ramya, can you share that website? Yeah. So, Mr. Sinha, I would definitely say take the permission before sharing the name. If you are uncertain about it, I think it's better to change the name, because the name is not so critical. The name is like a very minor thing. You can always change the name and keep it, you know, keep the other things relatable. Ideal attention span. So I would say like a 2-minute, 2.5 minute is the attention span that you can keep. So when people are talking, it's about 150 words per minute. So 300 words if you're talking. If you are writing, then people can read a little faster. Maybe they can read at about 300 words a minute. So you can keep it a little longer, and so on. Some of these platforms themselves have little restrictions, like LinkedIn has a 1300 character restriction. So maybe that will kind of, you know, force you to edit and make your story short. I hope that helps, Kanika and Mr. Sinha. Great, guys. So I'll share the short PDF with this one with Namita and Dhaval, and they'll forward it to you.
Sure. As Ravi was mentioning, we are planning to have a detailed course on all aspects of storytelling. So I'm just launching a poll now, just to gauge your interest if you would be willing to take up this course. Please let me know your thoughts through this poll. Yes. Okay. Here is the link wherein you can show your interest if you are interested with Danamojo. Here's the inquire form wherein you can fill in and we'll contact you. Take that further. Shanta, are you still not able to see the poll? Okay. Our webinar recordings can be is present on our YouTube channel, the link of which I'm sending through. Anytime you want to revisit the recordings, please feel free to do so. And also please do subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss any of our updates.
Okay, thanks so much everyone for the kind words. Really means a lot.
Okay. Yeah, here is our last poll. We just want to know how this session went. So just one more minute, and let us know how you liked this particular webinar. Yeah, thank you everyone. Thanks for pulling out time from your busy schedule, and we look forward to seeing you again in our next session. Thank you.
Thank you guys.